Chapter 1. The Hopeless Finding. With the sun sinking below the horizon, the barren terrain was covered in long, ominous shadows. The deserted graveyard was encircled by gnarled trees that murmured in the bone-rattling breeze. The air was dense
with an uncanny cold. Tucked up in the heart of Willowbrook County's forests, the cemetery had no name or signs to let the living know it was there. Its headstones had been worn down by time and engulfed by creeping foliage after being abandoned for decades. It was simply known to those who knew of it as the Forgotten Graveyard, a location cloaked in tales of death's curse and restless ghosts. Once the sun had fallen, no one dared to venture inside
its frightening walls. However, on this moonless night, the eerie charm of the graveyard drew in two odd guests: paranormal investigators. Sarah and Ethan, who have a fondness for unearthing the macabre, have heard rumors about the abandoned cemetery's eerie past. Equipped with flashlights, cameras, and an intense inquisitiveness, they braved the darkness without a moon. As they pushed into the underbrush, their footsteps breaking the foreboding calm, the forest appeared to shut in on them. Abruptly, the graveyard entrance emerged, seemingly created from the shadows themselves. Detectives entered the domain of the dead as the rusty iron gate creaked open with a spooky moan. The cemetery was a barren wasteland of broken headstones and overgrown shrubbery. The moon was partially covered by thick clouds, so the two had to rely on their flashlights to find their way through the maze-like passageways. Sarah's flashlight flickered as they made their way more into the cemetery, creating strange, lengthy shadows that swirled over the tombstones. She had a shiver down her spine and a persistent sense that someone was watching her. The gloomy atmosphere, complete with the gnarled branches that extended out like skeleton fingers, the ghostly mist that clung to the ground, and the general sense of dread that hung thick in the air, was recorded by Ethan's camera. As they continued to explore, they came to a very worn tombstone with almost unreadable writing. After removing years' worth of moss and grime, Sarah knelt down and revealed Eleanor Whitmore, 1847-1866. They both jumped as she read the name out loud, and a low, melancholy lament reverberated around the cemetery. The noise appeared to come from everywhere, as though the ground beneath their feet was lamenting the young woman's premature passing. The incident was caught on camera by Ethan, including their scared looks and the ghostly mist that surrounded Eleanor Whitmore's tombstone. It served as a terrifying reminder that the ghosts that remained in the abandoned cemetery were everything but resting places, and that they were not alone there. Despite their frazzled nerves and mounting uneasiness, Sarah and Ethan persisted in their quest to learn the mysteries hidden in the abandoned cemetery. However, they had no idea that the Forgotten Graveyard's actual horrors were only getting started. The first chapter concluded with Sarah and Ethan discovering something frightening at the cemetery, an unexplained cry that seemed to come from the ground itself, as well as a ghostly mist that clung to the gravestone. They had begun forth on a route into darkness, driven by their zeal to learn the mysteries of the graveyard, and the ghosts of the lost were starting to stir.
Chapter 2. The Eerie Reverberations. The atmosphere at the Forgotten Graveyard became more and more gloomy as Sarah and Ethan continued their exploration. The horrible howl that had reverberated across the cemetery continued to ring in their ears, and the shadows appeared to move with a sinister intent. The weak rays of light from their flashlights swirled and flickered in the somber atmosphere of the graveyard. As they drew closer, they observed the obvious marks of recent disturbance in the earth beneath a collection of tombstones. The dates and names faded by time. Ethan stooped, his fingers grazing the just-turned soil. He said, "Look at this," in a nervous whisper. "This place looks like someone or something has been digging." A faint, melancholy hum seemed to vibrate through the very earth under them as they inspected the damaged graves. It felt as though the ground shifted and trembled in reaction to the otherworldly noise. When Sarah discovered they weren't alone at the cemetery, her heart began to race. It was getting more and more obvious that the Forgotten Graveyard spirits were stirring. The ghostly mist congealed into blurry shapes, the tombstones moving as though pushed from below, and the ground itself vibrating with an unearthly force, were all recorded by Ethan's camera. With their senses keenly tuned in, They made their way deeper into the cemetery. The strange happenings become more intense, like the ghosts were getting angrier at being intruded upon. From beyond, they heard weak but clear whispers that carried mysterious messages. One voice begged, "Leave this place." One more pleaded, "Leave us alone." Despite their fears, Sarah and Ethan persisted in their quest to learn the truth. The signals of doom and ghostly appearances had not stopped them from coming to the forgotten graveyard in search of answers. They arrived to a mausoleum after their excursion, its massive stone entrance ajar. They cautiously opened it to see a room that looked to be pulsing with an evil force. They discovered a dilapidated journal within, its pages replete with the meanderings of a troubled mind. The journal belonged to the young woman whose gravestone they had previously found, Eleanor Whitmore. In her words, the graveyard was cursed, a curse brought on by a sad love and a spirit of retaliation. The mood in the tomb got more and more gloomy as they read Eleanor's remarks. As shadows gathered about them, the ethereal fog solidified into a terrifying, spectral figure, a lady with pain in her eyes. The phantom muttered, "You should not have come," in a melancholy lament. Sarah and Ethan had a sinking sense as they knew they had discovered a demonic force that was ravenous for their souls. They had underestimated how subtle the curse of the forgotten graveyard would be, and now they found themselves ensnared in a terrifying nightmare from which they might never awaken. After Sarah and Ethan found Eleanor Whitmore's journal and encountered the enraged spirit within the tomb, Chapter 2 came to a close. The investigators were in a dangerous and increasingly terrifying scenario, as the evil forces were closing in, due to the forgotten graveyard's curse. Chapter 3. The Revealed Curse. The air in the tomb thickened with tension as Sarah and Ethan were met by the enraged spirit of Eleanor Whitmore. Her wispy shape seemed to flicker like a candle in a windy breeze, and her melancholy stare seemed to reach into their souls. Lifting her voice, Eleanor reiterated her haunting mantra, "You should not have come," her voice trembling with anguish. "There is no way out of this place. It is cursed." Though they exchanged apprehensive looks, Sarah and Ethan did not back down. They were too far gone to go back now. They faced the ghostly apparition with determination. Sarah responded, "We're here to help," her voice firm despite the obvious anxiety that was taking hold of her. "Our goal is to comprehend the curse and discover a means to lift it." With a look of deep agony in her eyes, Eleanor observed the investigators for a little minute before continuing, this time speaking in a softer, more desperate tone. "The beginning of the curse was treachery and love. If you are going to release this area from its evil hold, a serious injustice needs to be made right." Sarah and Ethan were left with more questions than answers by the enigmatic remarks, but they were also aware that they had to find out what was going on. Eleanor's ghostly shape vanished, leaving them in the spooky mausoleum by themselves, with shadows that appeared to become darker and more sinister. With their senses keenly tuned in, they resumed their investigation of the cemetery. The whispering in the air became louder and more forceful with every step they took, as if they were in tune with the restless spirits. One voice, "Find the heart of the curse," pleaded. "Save the wandering soul," pleaded someone else. Seeking hints that might take them to the source of the curse, the detectives complied with the cryptic instructions. During their hunt, they came upon a worn gravestone with the name James Mallory. Ethan started to slowly remove the gravestone, exposing a secret space underneath. They found a fading picture of a young guy and a locket with a hair clip inside, along with a letter that said, "Forgive me, my love." The jigsaw pieces started to fit together. Sarah and Ethan came to understand that the forgotten graveyard's curse was connected to a sad love tale, one that was destroyed by treachery and gave birth to resentful spirits bent on exacting revenge. Now armed with this knowledge, they went back to the tomb and saw Eleanor's ghost emerge. They gave her the locket and the picture, the material representations of the love and treachery that gave rise to the curse. Eleanor's ghostly shape trembled, her somber countenance fading. She said, "You have found it, the heart of the curse. You have to find the lost soul now, the one who can save us all." With the mysterious letter came a difficult assignment for Sarah and Ethan. Their task was to solve the curse, and they were committed to finding the missing soul that had the key to releasing the forgotten graveyard from its evil hold. Shadows shrouded them like a cloak as they exited the tomb, and it appeared as though restless ghosts were observing everything they did. The detectives understood that the darkest trials still lay ahead, yet the path to redemption remained treacherous even after the curse revealed its sad beginnings. When Sarah and Ethan learned of the curse's sad love tale and realized that the only way to find a cure was to locate the lost soul that might free the spirits residing in the forgotten graveyard, Chapter 3 came to an end. In their quest to discover this crucial, individuals identify and lift the evil spell that had befallen the abandoned cemetery, their trip had become even more difficult. Chapter 4: The Atonement. Sarah and Ethan ventured more into the menacing embrace of the forgotten graveyard as they searched for the identify of the missing person who may save the cemetery. The agitated ghosts followed their every step, getting more insistent in their whispers as though directing the detectives to their ultimate goal. They found the ancient oak tree in the middle of the cemetery thanks to their search. Its gnarled branches resembled the twisted fingers of a phantom guardian. There, under the dark shade, they found an unmarked tomb with the ground turned over as though it had just been disturbed. Ethan started excavating the tomb, trembling with a sense of both excitement and fear. They discovered a wooden coffin that had been rusted and deteriorated over the years as the ground gave way. The cemetery's creepy atmosphere grew more intense, as though the ghosts were holding their breath together. They opened the casket cautiously, reverently, and saw the bones of a young man. When his bony fingers gripped a necklace resembling the one they had discovered earlier, Sarah and Ethan felt a wave of recognition. They shuddered when they saw the young man's name engraved on the locket: James Mallory. He was the missing soul with the answers they were looking for, the key to breaking the curse. A ghostly mist appeared around the detectives as they cautiously took the locket from James Mallory's skeleton fingers. The ghosts of the forgotten graveyard appeared to approach, their presence now eager rather than intimidating. Sarah and Ethan went back to the tomb with the locket, and Eleanor's ghostly figure was waiting for them. Her eyes widened in recognition as they showed her the necklace, and a ray of hope appeared to flash in her sorrowful look. The words, "You have found him," were spoken by Eleanor in a grateful whisper. "My betrayer, James Mallory, my love. The only one who can save us all is him." The cause of the curse was revealed to be a serious injustice that had festered for centuries, and a love that had been shattered by treachery. Now Sarah and Ethan had to make things right. Now that they had the locket, they did what Eleanor had instructed, completing a redemption ceremony that would free the souls from their suffering. The ethereal mist swirled about them as they performed the ritual, and the restless souls started to rise, their agonized cries replaced by a chorus of appreciation. The evil spirits that had plagued the forgotten graveyard for decades had finally been vanquished, and the cemetery could now finally rest. The ethereal mist lifted, and Eleanor's spectral figure appeared to glow with inner serenity as the mausoleum's atmosphere softened. The ominous murmurs of the spirits vanished into the distance as Sarah and Ethan departed the forgotten graveyard, and the once oppressive shadows appeared to recede. The stillness of the night had regained the cursed cemetery, rather than it being abandoned. In the end, they had brought salvation to a place long forgotten and covered in darkness. Their trip had been one of risk and discovery. The curse had been removed, and the ghosts of the forgotten graveyard had finally found rest, leaving a legacy of bravery and kindness. The effective restoration of the forgotten graveyard by Sarah and Ethan, as well as the spirits' deliverance from their agony, marked the end of Chapter 4. The source of the curse had been found, and the evil entities that had tormented the cemetery were at last at peace. The investigators left a legacy of bravery and compassion in the face of the paranormal, bringing calm to a place long forgotten.